The camera clicked one final time as Lila Chen captured the last dance of the evening, watching through her viewfinder as the bride and groom swayed together under strings of golden lights. She had photographed over 70 weddings in the past 3 years, but something about this particular event felt different, though she could not quite place why. Perhaps it was the way the ocean breeze filtered through the beachside venue. Or maybe it was the unexpected presence of the man who had been watching her work all night from his position near the bar. Vincent Xavier stood with his hands in his pockets, his tailored suit fitting him perfectly despite the casual beach setting. He was the groom's business partner and had been tasked with overseeing the wedding arrangements when his colleague had gotten overwhelmed with the planning. That responsibility had led him to hire Lila's photography services 3 months ago, though they had only communicated through emails and one brief phone call. Seeing her in person was entirely different than he had anticipated. She moved through the crowd with an ease that suggested years of experience, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her movements efficient but graceful. Vincent had built a furniture manufacturing empire worth over $200 million by the age of 34, and he prided himself on recognizing talent when he saw it. Lila was exceptional at what she did, capturing moments that others would have missed entirely. As the reception wound down, Lila began packing her equipment, carefully wrapping lenses and securing her camera bodies in their protective cases. She felt someone approach and looked up to find Vincent standing beside her table, 2 glasses of champagne in his hands. "You worked through the entire reception without taking a break," he said, offering her one of the glasses. "Thought you might be thirsty." Lila accepted the glass with a tired smile. "Hazard of the job, but thank you, this is kind of you, Vincent Xavier. I was the one who hired you, actually. We spoke on the phone back in November." Recognition flickered across her face. "Right, of course. I remember. You were very specific about wanting candid shots rather than posed ones. My business partner deserved the best, and your portfolio convinced me you could deliver that." He gestured to the dance floor where the newlyweds were still wrapped in each other's arms. "Seems like I made the right choice." They talked for nearly an hour as the venue slowly emptied around them. Vincent found himself genuinely interested in her stories about photographing everything from intimate elopements to massive destination weddings. She had a way of describing moments that made them come alive, her passion for her craft evident in every word. When she mentioned that she had started her business from scratch after dropping out of a corporate marketing job, he felt an unexpected kinship with her. He had taken his father's struggling furniture workshop and transformed it into something his family had never imagined possible. "I should probably get going," Lila finally said, glancing at her watch. "It is almost midnight and I have another wedding tomorrow afternoon." "Let me help you carry your equipment to your car," Vincent offered, already reaching for one of her bags before she could protest. The parking lot was quiet, illuminated by scattered streetlights that cast long shadows across the pavement. As they loaded the last of her gear into her trunk, Vincent found himself reluctant to say goodbye. There was something about Lila that drew him in, a combination of confidence and genuine warmth that he rarely encountered in his business circles. "Would you be interested in having dinner with me sometime?" The words came out more directly than he had planned, but Vincent had never been one to dance around what he wanted. Lila paused, her hand resting on the trunk lid. She studied his face in the dim light, seeming to weigh something in her mind. "Is this about potentially hiring me for another event?" "No," he said simply. "This is about me wanting to spend more time with you." A slow smile spread across her face. "Then yes, I would like that." They exchanged numbers, and as Lila drove away, Vincent stood in the parking lot longer than necessary, watching her taillights disappear into the night. He could not remember the last time he had felt this particular combination of anticipation and nervousness. Their first dinner happened 5 days later at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood that tourists rarely discovered. Vincent had chosen it specifically because it was unpretentious and intimate, the kind of place where they could actually hear each other talk. Lila arrived wearing a simple blue dress that made her eyes look impossibly bright, and Vincent found himself standing a bit straighter when she walked through the door. "I was worried you might have picked somewhere incredibly fancy," Lila admitted as they settled into their booth. "I've been to exactly 2 five-star restaurants in my life, both times for wedding shoots, and I spent the entire time terrified I would use the wrong fork." Vincent laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "I own a furniture company, not a bank. Besides, I've always found those places more interested in impressing people than actually feeding them well." The conversation flowed as easily as it had at the wedding, perhaps even more so now that they were focused entirely on each other. Lila told him about growing up in Portland with her single mother, how her first camera had been a gift from her grandfather before he passed away. She described the way photography had given her a purpose during a time when she felt lost in the corporate world, attending meetings about marketing strategies that left her feeling empty. Vincent shared his own story, explaining how his father's furniture workshop had been weeks from bankruptcy when he took over at 23. "Everyone thought I was crazy for dropping out of business school to save a failing company," he said, twirling pasta around his fork. "But I could see the potential in what my father had built. He was an incredible craftsman who just needed someone to handle the business side. We started with custom dining tables for local restaurants, then expanded into commercial furniture for offices and hotels. Now we have manufacturing facilities in 4 states and ship internationally." "You still get to do any of the actual furniture making?" Lila asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "Weekends, mostly. I have a workshop at my house where I build things just for myself. Keeps me grounded when the CEO responsibilities get overwhelming." He paused, then added, "I would show you sometime if you were interested." "I would really like that," she said softly. As the weeks passed, dinner dates turned into weekend outings and long phone conversations that stretched late into the night. Vincent found himself rearranging meetings to spend more time with Lila, something that surprised his assistant, who had never known him to prioritize anything over work. Lila, who had always guarded her free time fiercely to avoid burnout, discovered that she actively looked forward to the moments she could carve out to see him. Their second month of dating brought an unexpected complication when Lila was offered a lucrative contract to photograph a series of weddings in Hawaii over the span of 3 weeks. The money was substantial enough to carry her through the slower winter months, but accepting meant being away from Vincent during what felt like a crucial time in their relationship. "You have to take it," Vincent said firmly when she called him, her voice tight with indecision. "Lila, this is your career. I would never ask you to compromise that. But 3 weeks is a long time, and we have only been seeing each other for 2 months. What if the distance changes things?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, and she could hear traffic sounds in the background. He was probably leaving his office for the evening. "Then we will figure it out together," he finally said. "But running from opportunities because of fear is not who you are. I've seen you work. You're too passionate about what you do to let anything hold you back." His words settled something in her chest, and she accepted the Hawaii contract the next morning. Before she left, Vincent drove her to the airport personally, arriving at her apartment early enough that the sun had barely started to rise. As he carried her luggage to his car, Lila felt overwhelmed by the simple kindness of the gesture. At the departure gate, Vincent pulled her close, his hand cupping the back of her head as he kissed her forehead. "Take amazing photos. Make these couples feel like the most important people in the world, and call me whenever you have time, even if it is 3 in the morning your time." "I'm going to miss you," Lila whispered against his chest, surprising herself with how true the words felt. "I'm going to miss you too. But you will be back before we know it." Hawaii was beautiful and exhausting in equal measure. Lila photographed 5 weddings in 3 weeks, each one demanding her complete creative focus and physical stamina. The couples were lovely, the location stunning, and the work deeply satisfying. But in the quiet moments between events, she found herself reaching for her phone to share something funny with Vincent or to hear his voice before falling asleep. They video called nearly every evening, Vincent showing her his workshop where he was building a bookshelf from reclaimed wood, Lila giving him virtual tours of the beaches where she had shot that day. The distance somehow intensified what they felt for each other, proving that what they had was more substantial than simple physical attraction or convenient timing. "I've been thinking," Vincent said during one of their calls, his face pixelated slightly from the connection. "When you get back, I want you to meet my family. My parents have been asking about you, and I would really like them to know the woman who has completely changed how I think about everything." Lila's heart skipped. Meeting the family felt significant, a clear signal that Vincent saw this relationship as something serious and long-term. "I would be honored," she said. "Though I have to admit I'm a little nervous. What if they think you could do better than a photographer who drives a 12-year-old sedan? My father spent 40 years covered in sawdust, and my mother worked as a school cafeteria manager to help pay the bills when the business was struggling. Trust me, they care about character, not bank accounts or fancy cars." He leaned closer to the camera, his expression intense even through the screen. "Besides, I don't think I could do better than you. You're kind, talented, passionate about what you do, and you make me laugh more than anyone I have ever known. That is what matters." When Lila finally returned from Hawaii, Vincent was waiting at the airport with a bouquet of sunflowers that made her laugh because they were so bright and cheerful, and completely impractical. She dropped her bags and wrapped her arms around him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with sawdust that seemed to cling to him no matter how many showers he took. "Welcome home," he murmured into her hair. "I missed you so much," she said, pulling back to look at his face. "Video calls are not the same as having you here." They went straight to his house, a modern but warm home on the outskirts of the city with large windows that flooded the space with natural light. His workshop was exactly as he had shown her on video, filled with tools organized with precise care and several pieces of furniture in various stages of completion. Lila walked around slowly, running her fingers along the smooth wood surfaces, impressed by the craftsmanship. "You made all of this?" she asked, pausing by a rocking chair that looked like it belonged in a museum. "That one was actually my father's work. He gave it to me when I bought this place. Everything else is mine, though." Vincent came to stand beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "Building things with my hands reminds me why I fell in love with this business in the first place. It's easy to forget when you are stuck in meetings about profit margins and supply chain logistics." Lila turned to face him, reaching up to touch his jaw. "Thank you for supporting me going to Hawaii. It meant everything that you understood how important that opportunity was." "Always," he said, covering her hand with his own. "Your dreams matter just as much as mine." Meeting Vincent's parents happened the following Sunday at their home, a cozy house filled with photographs and handmade furniture that Vincent's father had crafted over the decades. Thomas Xavier was a broad-shouldered man in his 60s with calloused hands and a warm smile that reminded Lila immediately of his son. Margaret Xavier was petite and energetic, pulling Lila into a hug before she had even made it fully through the front door. "Vincent has told us so much about you," Margaret said, ushering them into the living room. "He has not talked about anyone this way since high school, and believe me, I was starting to worry he would marry his work and give me furniture instead of grandchildren." "Mom," Vincent said, but he was grinning. Lunch was relaxed and full of laughter. Thomas told stories about Vincent as a child, always taking things apart to understand how they worked, driving his teachers crazy with constant questions. Margaret shared photos from Vincent's awkward teenage years that made Lila laugh until her sides hurt. Through it all, Lila felt herself relaxing, charmed by the genuine warmth and down-to-earth nature of his family. After lunch, Thomas pulled Lila aside while Vincent helped his mother with the dishes. They stood on the back porch, overlooking a garden that Margaret clearly tended with love. "My son is a good man," Thomas said quietly, "but he has always struggled with letting people get truly close. His business consumed him for years, and I worried about that. Since meeting you, though, I've seen him smile more than he has in the past decade. Whatever you are doing, it is working." Lila felt her eyes prickle with unexpected tears. "He makes me happy too, happier than I knew I could be." Thomas nodded, satisfied. Then that is all a father can ask for. As fall shifted into winter, Lila and Vincent's relationship deepened in ways that felt both natural and profound. She started keeping a toothbrush at his house, and he cleared out a drawer in his dresser for her things. They fell into comfortable routines, cooking dinner together when both their schedules allowed, taking long walks through the city on Sunday mornings, curling up on his couch to watch movies that neither of them paid much attention to because they were too busy talking. The wedding season slowed as expected, giving Lila more free time than she usually had. She used some of it to start a photography blog that Vincent encouraged, sharing tips and behind-the-scenes stories from her shoots. To her surprise, it gained traction quickly, leading to inquiries about workshops and speaking engagements. "You should do it," Vincent said, when she nervously mentioned the possibility of teaching a weekend photography intensive. "You're incredible at what you do, and you have a gift for explaining things in ways that make sense. Other photographers would be lucky to learn from you. What if I'm terrible at teaching? What if everyone realizes I have been faking knowing what I am doing this whole time?" Vincent pulled her into his lap, his arms secure around her waist. "Lila Chen, you are one of the most competent people I have ever met. Stop doubting yourself and just try. The worst that happens is you decide teaching is not for you. The best that happens is you discover a whole new passion." She launched the workshop in January, teaching 12 aspiring wedding photographers over the course of a weekend. Vincent showed up on the Sunday afternoon with coffee and pastries for everyone, staying in the back of the room to watch Lila work. Seeing her in her element, confident and knowledgeable and so clearly invested in helping others succeed, made him fall even more deeply in love with her. That evening, as they cleaned up the studio space she had rented, Vincent caught her hand and pulled her to a stop. "What?" she asked, laughing at his serious expression. "I love you," he said simply. "I have been wanting to say it for weeks, but I kept waiting for the perfect moment. Then I realized that every moment with you feels perfect, so I should just tell you." Lila's breath caught. She had known for a while that she loved him, felt it in the way her heart lifted whenever he called, in how she automatically thought of him when something good or bad happened. But hearing him say it first, with such straightforward honesty, made her feel like she could float. "I love you too," she said, rising on her toes to kiss him. "I really, really love you." Spring brought new opportunities and challenges for both of them. Vincent's company landed a massive contract to furnish an entire hotel chain, a deal that would require him to travel frequently for site visits and meetings. Lila's photography business exploded after one of her Hawaii weddings was featured in a major bridal magazine, leading to a flood of inquiries and bookings that extended into the next year. They navigated the busy season together, supporting each other through late nights and stressful deadlines. When Vincent had to fly to Seattle for a week of meetings, Lila surprised him by showing up on the Thursday, having rearranged a shoot so she could spend the weekend with him. When Lila had a panic attack before photographing the wedding of a celebrity client, Vincent talked her through it over the phone, his calm voice reminding her of all the reasons she was exceptional at her job. Their one-year anniversary arrived in late March, marked by the same beach where they had first met at the wedding Vincent had hired her to photograph. He had arranged for them to have dinner at the venue, which was closed for the evening but opened especially for them through a favor he called in with the owner. "This is where I first saw you," Vincent said as they walked along the sand, their shoes left behind on the deck. "I remember thinking you were the most focused person I had ever seen, completely absorbed in capturing these moments for people you did not even know. I was fascinated." "I remember noticing you watching me," Lila admitted. "I thought maybe you were a concerned client checking to make sure I was doing my job properly. Then you brought me champagne, and I realized you were just being kind." Vincent stopped walking, turning to face her with the ocean as their backdrop. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and pink that would have made for a stunning photograph if Lila had brought her camera. But she was grateful she had not, grateful to be fully present in this moment without the barrier of a lens. "This past year with you has been the best of my life," Vincent said, taking both of her hands in his. "You have challenged me, supported me, made me laugh, and shown me what it means to build a life with someone rather than just existing alongside them. I want more years like this. I want all of my years to be with you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, dropping to one knee on the sand. Lila's hands flew to her mouth as tears immediately sprang to her eyes. "Lila Chen, will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, a simple, elegant design that suited her practical nature while still being undeniably beautiful. But Lila barely looked at it, too focused on Vincent's face, on the hope and love she saw there. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "Yes, absolutely yes." He stood and swept her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed and cried simultaneously. When he finally set her down, he slid the ring onto her finger with hands that trembled slightly, betraying his nerves despite his outward confidence. They spent the rest of the evening planning an impromptu celebration, calling their families and close friends with the news. Margaret cried happy tears over the phone, and Thomas told Vincent he was proud of him for finding someone so special. Lila's mother, who had moved to Arizona the previous year, immediately began making plans to fly in so they could start looking at venues and discussing wedding details. Planning their own wedding proved to be both easier and harder than Lila had anticipated. As someone who had photographed dozens of weddings, she knew exactly what she wanted and what pitfalls to avoid. But actually making decisions for her own celebration felt overwhelming in ways she had not expected. "What if we just elope?" she suggested one evening as they sorted through venue options spread across Vincent's dining table. "We could go somewhere beautiful, just the two of us, and avoid all of this stress." Vincent looked up from the brochure he had been reading, considering her seriously. Is that what you really want? Because if it is, I will book flights tomorrow. But I think part of you wants to share this with the people we love. Otherwise, you would not be agonizing over whether your mother and my mother can work together on the planning without driving you crazy. Lila laughed despite her frustration. You're right. I do want them there. I want your parents and my mom and our friends. I want to celebrate with everyone who has supported us. I just wish the planning part was less exhausting. Then let's keep it simple. Small guest list, venue that means something to us, good food and great company. Everything else is just details. He pulled her into his lap, kissing her temple. And we will hire an excellent photographer to capture it all. They decided on a September wedding at a winery an hour outside the city, a location they had visited together during the summer and fallen in love with for its rolling hills and intimate atmosphere. The guest list stayed under 100 people, primarily family and close friends. Lila asked one of her photographer colleagues to shoot the wedding, someone whose work she trusted and who understood her vision. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of activity balanced with moments of quiet joy. Vincent insisted on building their wedding arch himself, spending weekends in his workshop crafting something beautiful from honey-colored wood. Lila designed their invitations, using photos she had taken of their favorite places around the city. They attended premarital counseling, not because they felt their relationship needed it, but because they wanted to be as prepared as possible for the challenges of marriage. Summer brought Vincent's busiest season, as multiple hotel projects demanded his attention. There were weeks when Lila barely saw him except late at night when he finally made it home, exhausted but still making an effort to ask about her day. She supported him through the stress, bringing him dinner at the office when he could not leave, rubbing his shoulders when tension made them tight as boards. In turn, Vincent was there for Lila when a difficult client tried to blame her for bad weather ruining outdoor photos, standing beside her as she professionally defended her work while privately fuming at the unfairness. He attended her second photography workshop, again sitting in the back with an expression of obvious pride that made her students ask if that was her husband. Not yet, she would say with a smile, but soon. Their wedding day arrived with perfect weather, the September afternoon warm but not hot, the sky a brilliant cloudless blue. Lila got ready surrounded by her mother and Margaret, both women fussing over her hair and makeup with an attention to detail that would have annoyed her from anyone else. But today she let herself be pampered, let herself feel treasured and special. The dress was simpler than many of the bridal gowns she had photographed, an elegant aligned style that moved beautifully and did not require constant adjustment. She had chosen it specifically because she wanted to feel like herself on this day, not like she was wearing a costume. Vincent waited at the altar with his father as his best man, his hands clasped in front of him to hide their nervous shaking. When the music started and Lila appeared at the end of the aisle on her mother's arm, he felt his breath catch. She was absolutely beautiful, but more than that, she was his. In moments, she would be his wife, his partner, his family. The ceremony was short and heartfelt, their vows personal promises to support each other's dreams and face challenges together. When the officiant finally pronounced them married, Vincent cupped Lila's face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made several guests reach for tissues. The reception was everything they had hoped for, relaxed and joyful, filled with laughter and dancing and toasts that ranged from touching to hilarious. Thomas spoke about watching his son grow from a determined young man trying to save a failing business into someone who had built an empire while never losing sight of what truly mattered. Lila's mother talked about her daughter's journey to finding work she loved and a partner who cherished her. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Vincent and Lila found themselves alone on the winery's terrace, overlooking the vineyard as the sun set in spectacular fashion. "We did it," Lila said, leaning into Vincent's side as his arm wrapped around her waist. "We are actually married." "Best decision I have ever made," Vincent replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Well, second best. Hiring you to photograph that wedding was the first," she laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "Who would have thought that a simple photography job would lead to this?" "I think part of me knew that night," Vincent admitted. "When I saw you working, something just clicked. I didn't know it would be love, but I knew you were going to matter to me." They danced one last slow dance as the sky darkened and stars began to appear, the winery staff discreetly giving them space. Tomorrow, they would leave for a honeymoon in Italy. 2 weeks of exploring and eating amazing food and simply being together without the demands of work. But for now, they simply swayed together under the stars, present in this perfect moment. The first year of marriage brought adjustments and growth for both of them. Lila moved into Vincent's house officially, transforming one of the spare bedrooms into a home office and editing studio. Vincent expanded his workshop, building a second workbench so Lila could join him on the occasional weekend project, even though she insisted she had no carpentry skills whatsoever. "You are teaching me photography. I can teach you basic woodworking," he said, positioning her hands correctly on a sander. "Besides, I like having you out here with me." They navigated the small conflicts that came with sharing a life, learning each other's quirks and pet peeves. Vincent discovered that Lila was absolutely hopeless at remembering to close cabinet doors, leaving a trail of open cupboards throughout the house. Lila learned that Vincent needed at least 30 minutes of quiet time when he first woke up. No conversation or questions until he had his coffee and could properly process the day ahead. But the foundation of their relationship remained strong, built on mutual respect and genuine friendship as much as love. They made decisions together about everything from paint colors to investment strategies, valuing each other's opinions and working through disagreements with patience. 2 years into their marriage, during a quiet dinner at home, Vincent brought up the subject of children. They had discussed it in abstract terms before, both agreeing they wanted kids eventually, but had not yet talked seriously about timing. "I have been thinking," Vincent said, setting down his fork. "The business is in a really solid place right now. I've got an excellent team handling day-to-day operations, which means I can be more flexible with my schedule. And I know your business is thriving, but you have also said you want to cut back on the number of weddings you shoot each year." Lila's heart started beating faster. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that if you want to start trying for a family, I think we are ready. But only if you feel the same way. This has to be something we both want at the same time." She reached across the table to take his hand, her smile radiant. "I have been hoping you would bring this up. I did not want to push, but yes, I think I am ready too." Getting pregnant took longer than either of them anticipated. 5 months of hoping and disappointment before finally seeing those 2 pink lines on a test. Lila took a photo of it, for once wanting to document her own life-changing moment. When she showed Vincent that evening, he picked her up and spun her around just like he had when she accepted his proposal, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. Pregnancy agreed with Lila for the most part, though the first trimester exhaustion was intense enough that she had to temporarily stop taking on new clients. Vincent was attentive without being overbearing, learning about pregnancy almost obsessively so he could anticipate what she might need. He built a crib for the nursery himself, a beautiful piece that Lila knew she would treasure forever. Their daughter arrived on a snowy February morning, a tiny perfect human with Vincent's dark hair and what would eventually become Lila's expressive eyes. They named her Violet Margaret, honoring Vincent's mother while choosing a name that felt fresh and full of possibility. Holding his daughter for the first time, Vincent felt something shift fundamentally inside him. He had built a successful business, married an incredible woman, created a life he was proud of. But this tiny person, completely dependent and absolutely perfect, put everything into a new perspective. "She's so small," he whispered, terrified of holding her wrong despite the nurse's reassurances. "She's perfect," Lila said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. "We made a person, Vincent. An actual human person." "We make a pretty good team," he agreed, carefully sitting beside her so they could both look at their daughter together. The early months of parenthood were exhausting and overwhelming, and more wonderful than either of them had imagined. They took shifts with nighttime feedings, supported each other through moments of doubt and fear, and celebrated every tiny milestone like it was the most important achievement in human history. Lila cut back her photography work significantly, accepting only a handful of carefully chosen weddings and focusing more on teaching workshops that could be scheduled flexibly. Vincent restructured his role at the company, promoting his most trusted manager to handle more of the day-to-day operations so he could work from home 2 days a week. "I don't want to miss these moments," he told Lila one afternoon as they watched Violet sleep in her bassinet. "The business will always be there, but she is only going to be this small for a little while." When Violet was 6 months old, Lila received an unexpected opportunity. A major photography publication wanted to feature her work and story, focusing on how she had built a successful business while maintaining artistic integrity and work-life balance. The article would include interviews, examples of her photographs, and potentially lead to even more speaking engagements and workshop requests. "You have to do it," Vincent said immediately when she told him about the offer. "This is huge for your career." "But it would mean more time away from Violet, more travel." "What if I am being selfish?" Vincent took her face in his hands, making sure she was looking directly at him. "You are an amazing mother. You are also a talented photographer and businesswoman. Those things don't cancel each other out." Violet will benefit from seeing her mother pursue her passions and succeed. Say yes. The article came out that fall and was even better than Lila had hoped, positioning her as a thought leader in wedding photography and small business development. The response was overwhelming, leading to opportunities she had never imagined, including an offer to write a book about building a creative business. Through it all, Vincent was her biggest supporter and advocate, watching Violet whenever Lila needed to travel for speaking engagements, celebrating each new success as if it were his own. In turn, Lila supported Vincent when his company faced a challenging lawsuit from a competitor, sitting up with him late at night as he worked through legal documents, reminding him of how far he had come and how capable he was of handling this setback. Their 5th wedding anniversary arrived with Violet now, an energetic 3-year-old, who had her father's determination and her mother's creative spirit. They celebrated with a quiet dinner at home after putting Violet to bed, the same meal they had eaten on their first date at that little Italian restaurant. 5 years, Lila said, raising her wine glass. "It feels like both forever and no time at all." "Best 5 years of my life," Vincent replied, clinking his glass against hers. "Though I have a feeling the next 5 will be even better." "Oh, why is that?" he smiled, pulling an envelope from his pocket. "Because I bought us that property we looked at last month." The one with the big workshop space and the room you wanted to convert into a proper photography studio. Lila's eyes widened. Vincent, that is a huge decision. We should have discussed it more. We've been discussing it for 6 months. Every time we drive past it, you get this look on your face like you are already planning how to use the space. And I want to give you that. I want us to build something together in a place that is truly ours. She launched herself at him, nearly knocking over both wine glasses in her enthusiasm. I love you so much. Have I told you that recently? Maybe once or twice today, he teased, catching her and holding her close. But I never get tired of hearing it. They moved into the new property that spring, a sprawling house on 5 acres that gave them space to grow and create. Vincent built Lila a custom studio with perfect lighting and storage, along with an expanded workshop for himself. Violet gained a huge backyard to play in, complete with a swing set that Vincent constructed himself. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm filled with work they loved, a daughter who amazed them daily, and a partnership that only grew stronger with time. Lila published her book to excellent reviews, establishing herself as an expert in her field while still maintaining the hands-on photography work she had always loved. Vincent continued to grow his business strategically, focusing on quality and sustainability rather than just expansion for its own sake. On weekends, they would often all work together in the workshop, Violet helping her father with projects while Lila photographed the process, capturing the relationship between father and daughter in images that she knew she would treasure forever. These were the moments she had never thought to dream of, when she was starting out as a wedding photographer, driving to venues alone and wondering if she had made the right choice leaving corporate security behind. When Violet started kindergarten, Vincent and Lila found themselves with more time together during the day, a second honeymoon phase where they could have long lunches and afternoon dates. They used the time to reconnect as a couple, not just as parents and business partners, making sure their marriage stayed prioritized. I have been thinking about expanding the family, Lila mentioned one afternoon as they walked through the property, checking on the garden they had planted together. Violet keeps asking for a baby brother or sister. Vincent stopped walking, turning to study her face. Is that what you want? Another child, I think so. I know it will be chaos, but good chaos. And I like the idea of Violet having a sibling. I was an only child, and while it had its benefits, I always wondered what it would be like to have a brother or sister. Then let's do it, Vincent said decisively. Our life is never going to be perfectly calm and organized, so we might as well embrace the chaos. Their son arrived 16 months later, a calm baby who seemed to observe everything with serious eyes. They named him Lucas Thomas, and Violet immediately appointed herself his protector and entertainment committee. Watching his children together, Vincent felt a completeness he had not known he was missing. The years continued to pass, filled with school plays and business trips, family vacations and quiet evenings at home. Lila and Vincent grew together rather than apart, continuously choosing each other and their family even when things got difficult. They weathered financial stress when the economy shifted, celebrated when Lila won a prestigious photography award, supported each other through the loss of Vincent's father, and cheered when the company hit record profits. Through everything, they maintained the foundation they had built from that very first conversation at the wedding reception where they met. They made each other laugh, respected each other's work, and never lost sight of why they had fallen in love in the first place. 10 years after their wedding, they returned to the same winery where they had gotten married, this time bringing Violet and Lucas along. The kids ran through the vineyard as Vincent and Lila walked the same terrace where they had shared their last dance as newlyweds. "Do you ever think about that first wedding?" Lila asked, her hand clasped in Vincent's. "The one where we met. All the time," he admitted. "I think about how close I came to just hiring the first photographer I found instead of carefully reviewing portfolios. If I had done that, we might never have met. The universe would have found a way to put us together," Lila said confidently. "Some things are just meant to be." Vincent pulled her close, kissing her temple as he had done countless times over the years. "I love you, Lila Xavier. Thank you for saying yes to dinner that night, and to everything that came after." "Thank you for seeing me," she replied softly. "For really seeing who I was and believing in me before I fully believed in myself." They stood together watching the sunset, their children's laughter floating up from the vineyard below, and felt profoundly grateful for the life they had built. From a simple photography job to a marriage filled with love, partnership, and purpose, they had created something beautiful together. And as Vincent held his wife close, he knew without question that the best decision he had ever made was hiring that photographer 10 years ago, and then having the courage to ask her to dinner. Everything else had unfolded perfectly from there. A love story captured not in photographs but in the daily choice to build a life together, frame by frame, moment by moment, year after beautiful year.